So first of all, thank you so much to Ellie and the team at We Are the City. I am delighted to be here talking to you this afternoon about using PR to keep visible in chaotic times. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I haven't looked at the news today because I didn't want to have to change any of my slides. But this is a really informal, hopefully really informative session as well, where I can help you understand a little bit more about PR and also how you can be using it at the moment to be visible and to help either with your career, or if you're a business owner, to help with your business. So feel absolutely free to put messages in the Q&As and I'm more than happy to help with those. So I am Natalie Trice. A little bit about me. I have worked in PR 23 years this year, so this month actually, 23 years. I have worked for some of the biggest TV companies. I headed up global PR for Cartoon Network and CNN before I had my sons, but I worked for Animal Planet. I started out working on printers and cameras for Epson and Hewlett Packard. I've worked for charities. I have pretty much probably PR'd everything there is out there. I even approached about sanitary towels last week, but I say that, so whilst I still have a couple of clients, I actually mainly now teach other people to do their own PR. So I've actually written a book called PR School, which is all about how to learn how to do PR for yourself and get yourself out there. I'm a lecturer at various universities, and I'm also a career and confidence coach, predominantly for PR and media professionals, but not exclusively. So I live in Devon with my 2 children and my husband and our dogs, and when I'm not at my desk I do get in the water, which is something that I never thought I would say when I was living in London, wearing high heels and expensive dresses. Now I'm in mainly flip-flops and cut-offs. Picture of my sons, because actually I did have a slight career break, and this will play a part in my presentation. I'm not just talking about me. So my youngest son, the blonde little boy in the photograph, was born with a condition called hip dysplasia. So I actually closed my business for a while because he had multiple operations to break his legs and pelvis and try and fix him. In that time I also set up a charity and wrote my first book, and did all the PR for that. So what I'm saying is that I know how it feels to be you. So whilst I know what it's like to sit and do PR for clients and for big businesses, I also know the vulnerability that you can feel when you're putting yourself out there. And so I hope that just makes it a little bit more relatable, and it doesn't feel like I'm preaching at you, but I'm actually saying that it can feel a bit scary and a bit cringy, but actually being visible is really, really important, and actually it can be a huge adrenaline fix as well. So that's me. PR, not ER. So what is PR? I don't know from people who are here how much you know, how much you don't know. I could get very, very into the nitty-gritty of what PR is. The one way that I explain it, and I do say it's PR, not ER, it is a very pressurized adrenaline ride of a career. So whilst we are not brain surgeons or fixing things, there can be a lot of pressures because you've got your story, you have also got potentially clients, you have then got a boss, you might have some other people working with you, but you've also got the demands of a journalist or an influencer and a picture desk. So actually it's not ER, but it can be quite pressurized. So I do think that's quite an important thing to mention in the times that we're working in at the moment. But what is it? Well, I try to explain PR as a personal recommendation, and I do have show and tell. I have brought my magazines with me. If you think about PR as a personal recommendation, it is officially public relations. So it's how you communicate with the outside world about your business or your brand. But if you think about it in terms of a public relation, you are using other people's platforms to communicate something about you to their audience. And so that can sometimes help. If we're talking about, if we're talking about an advert, so if you're advertising, that's your page, which will have been very, very expensive. And it's a lovely glossy picture. You've got your branding, you've got your product, and you are telling the consumer exactly what you want them to know about you. So it's kind of like me coming on here today and saying, I'm the best PR in the world, which actually is not true. But if one of my clients said, Natalie does a really good job and she knows some great journalists, that's their personal recommendation. And really that's what the PR is about. So if you had a look inside these magazines, 7 ways to get your mojo back. I'm sure we could all do with that at the moment. So this is a double page feature about how to get your mojo back during coronavirus. And within there are various experts giving comments. And so essentially the magazine is saying, well, we trust this expert to give their opinion and we're going to give them a place on our page. So they're recommending you to their readers, and in that time you're also telling them about yourself. Far more straightforward. These are running clothes. This isn't an advert, it is editorial. And the magazine are recommending these clothes to go out and buy if you want to be sporty in the winter. Do you? I don't know, maybe. I need a wetsuit, so I would be looking for that. So essentially PR is telling your story, telling information about your brand, but it's by someone else. So you lose some control. If you're advertising, you can say exactly what you want because you pay a premium for that place. When it's PR, it's about building relationships with journalists. It's about getting to know people so that they can tell your story to their audience. And I will talk about this more, but it is very much about relationships. So if I think about the work that I've done with We Are the City over recent years, and they're hugely supportive of me and my work and my clients, but it's taken time to build up that relationship with Alison and Ellie and her team. I can't just go along and say, oh, can you cover my client? So it's putting in that work, and that's almost like the journalists as well. That's your PR. You're putting in the time with those journalists to trust you, to know you, to know that you're going to deliver. So there we go. It's ER, it's not PR. So it's all about personal recommendations and telling your story, letting people know about your brands in a really authentic way, but via a third person. So it's almost like news books, and you're telling this story, and it can be great. I really love PR. I've never done advertising. I have worked on hundreds of campaigns and done all kinds of things, and I think that it can be really impactful because someone else is shouting about you, and that's kind of what we want them to do. Nicely, of course, nicely. Okay, so the next slide. Exactly. So here we go. Personal recommendation by a third party, and this could be a journalist for a newspaper or magazine, a blogger, an influencer, or a podcast. So you are using someone else's platform to talk about your brand, which can be really, really powerful. So essentially today what I'm doing is PR. I'm doing my own PR because We Are the City have given me this platform to talk to you. So just having a think about how it might work for you. Okay, so Alison actually gave this comment, and it's talking about yourself, how we talk about ourselves. And I know that this is something that, I don't know, it seems especially at the moment that when it comes to doing PR, comes to being visible, people can kind of get stage fright, and they feel like they shouldn't be talking about themselves. They don't want to be too big for their boots, all of those kind of conversations that we can have in our heads. But as Alison said, don't be afraid to do that. You've got something to say, you've got a great product, you offer a great service, and you should be shouting from the rooftops, especially when it comes to promoting your brand. And I absolutely believe that. And I think that everyone here today, hopefully you will see that you have something of huge value for other people, and that you should be allowed to go and talk about it. And I hope you will be by the end of this session. So before we talk about what you can do, I'm just going to look at some of the reasons why you aren't doing your PR. Maybe you are, and sometimes in these things people will put their hands up and say, oh, I am doing it. But reasons why people don't do PR, there are loads of them, but I thought I would just touch on a few so that you got an idea. Maybe you'll be nodding your heads, maybe it's not you, and if it's not you, that's great, but you don't have the time. We're all busy. We spend far more time, I do anyway, on Zoom and doing those things than I ever did before Corona. So there's always a reason. It's probably like my accounts. There's always a reason why we don't do these things, and time can be one of the things that that we put in our way. You don't have your own office. I actually did this presentation this time last year, and for a different reason, and it was in a different format, but you don't have your own office. It wasn't like it is now. So I do have an office in my house, but sometimes my kids might come and do their homework in here with me, or the dogs will come in. So yeah, we don't have our own office, we don't have our own space, but even if you can find that tiny nook in the kitchen, or go and shut the door in your bedroom, or sit in the bath, there's a way. So don't have your own office, we can look at that. Don't have the contacts. This is always a really interesting one. Certainly I know that when I had my break, when I was looking after Lucas, lots of my contacts changed. So lots of them were female journalists, so they've gone on maternity leave, they could become freelance. New people had come on the scene, new publications had arrived, old magazines had gone, like Marie Claire. It's such a fast changing world. So saying that you don't have the contacts, if you think about when you started school, you didn't have any friends, and I'm pretty sure that everyone here today has friends. So we can't always use that as a reason, but we can put it in there as a way to kind of keep ourselves safe and not try and make the contacts, because sometimes that feels easier. You don't have any images. Yep, iPhone. So whilst journalists like high-res images, they like good images, they probably wouldn't want an image of me sitting in this particular background. We can't say that anymore, because we can take images, we can find a way of taking our photographs. Again, you can always barter. So if you can't afford a professional photographer, maybe you've got a friend who is a photographer and you could swap a press release for some photographs. Or if you live in my house, I wrote my sons in, which they are pretty used to. Don't have a website. Again, you don't have to have an all singing, all dancing website. And I know not everyone has a web presence, but I really think that today some kind of online presence is important, and that could be your Instagram account. You could kind of showcase who you are and what you do using social media. It doesn't have to be a full website. So we can't panic and say we don't have a website. It's not actually a barrier of entry to PR. You don't have a budget. Again, this isn't necessary. You can watch today, which was free. There's loads of resources online. You can learn. You can, you know, it's one of those things that if it's something that you can see the value of doing and you don't have a budget, you can do it yourself. And I'm going to help you to do that today. You aren't good enough. So this is something that comes up both with my my PR clients, my coaching clients, my students I lecture. It's just that feeling that you are, oh, Roxanne. Yeah, so Roxana, your role there, absolutely. So the role of the PR, I guess, for you is going to be promoting that organisation to the outside world. And if you want assistants to become members, then they kind of need that validation that it's a good thing to join. There's benefits of membership. It's good to have that on your website. So yeah, it's looking at how you can be talking about the benefits that you offer as an organisation. And I'm talking off the top of my head, obviously, because I haven't looked at this site, but PR could be so helpful for that. And it could really help you to look at, we're going to come onto this, your target audience, who you're talking to, and using PR to get the word out there, which is really important. And sometimes it can actually be easier if you are doing something like Roxana and she's promoting an organisation rather than necessarily promoting herself. But again, some organisations will feel like they don't have enough to say, they don't have enough to talk about, they're not shiny enough yet. And we can put all of these barriers in our way to actually achieving something. And I see it time and time again, but it's time to stop. And I'm here to help you to stop, because actually, if you can find that kind of inner strength, might be a little bit dramatic, but if you can find that strength to actually step out of that and go, right, I am good enough, I'm going to make this work, and I want to be seen, because I think we have to look at the benefits of being in the shadows to the benefits of being in the spotlight, and they can be huge. So, reasons why you should do PR. Roxana, I hope this is going to help you. And again, I hope there will be questions that I can help other people with as we go through or when we finish. PR. So you're using PR, these personal recommendations, be that an interview in a podcast, it could be a piece in a magazine, it could be a report in a newspaper, it could be on someone's blog, and they are telling their audience about you, they're recommending you. And when you do this, that can help grow your business because more people will know that you are there. So it's really, really impactful. If you say, I want my, here we go, my not very healthy snack that I was going to have a second ago. If we want to sell 1,000 bars of this a day, then we're going to do some PR in Beano, because little boys love chocolate biscuits, and girls and boys. I have a son, he loves Beano, and he also loves chocolate biscuits. So if we did some PR and we made this snack into one of the cartoon characters in Beano, we'd probably sell more and we'd grow the business. So it's looking at it as that kind of puzzle. So definitely growing your business can really, really help by having PR. Drive your sales. Again, more people know about you, the more people come to your website, or they might look on your Instagram, check out your Instagram squares, look on your Facebook, and then they'll buy from you. So people buy from people, especially when you're a smaller business or you are an entrepreneur on your own, maybe a startup. It can help drive your sales because you're saying, I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm ready to help you. I've got these great products. I've got these services that you can buy from me. And yeah, I can help you. What else can it do? Raise awareness or money for a cause. So with my slightly other hat on, I have a charity, DDH UK, and it raises awareness and helps people with hip dysplasia. And then recently Millie McIntosh from Made in Chelsea, her daughter was diagnosed, and on the back of that we managed to put together an amazing package, and we were on BBC Breakfast and Victoria Derbyshire and 6 O'Clock News, and it really helped raise awareness of hip dysplasia, and it raised some money, and it just put it on the map, which is unusual because it's in COVID. It's not particularly well known. I have a huge passion for it, and I like to raise awareness. So it can be really, really important. And for the BBC to kind of put your organisation on their channel is a massive personal recommendation, and that's how PR works. So I hope that helps. Oh, part of the conversation. So as you can tell, I like to talk a lot, but when you do your PR, you're seen as part of that conversation. That conversation could be being in this magazine because you are an expert and you're commenting amongst your peers. It could be that you're having a conversation on a radio show. You could be having that conversation on a podcast, but you're part of what's going on. So we can sit in isolation on the sidelines and think, well, they're always on the radio, or they're always being on a podcast, they're always being interviewed. It's because they're putting themselves forward and they're part of what's going on. And that's really, really important, and something that I encourage all my clients and my students to do is just be visible and be part of the conversation. Position yourself as an expert. So this is one of my favourite things. If I go back to the hips, somehow I'm not an orthopaedic surgeon, but I am considered an expert in hip dysplasia around the world. That has been through PR. It's just simply been pushing the cause out there, talking about it, being part of the conversation with other organisations, being part of the conversation with surgeons, writing a book, and really kind of embracing that world. And so it can be extremely powerful. And if you think about, we use the example of a Pilates teacher. I mean, that would be great at the moment because maybe you're a Pilates teacher and you've pivoted your business, so you're doing Zoom sessions. You're putting yourself as part of the conversation about how to keep healthy and fit at home during Corona and lockdown. And then you're starting to do a few of them, and slowly you'll become to be seen as that expert, maybe in Pilates, or it could be you're the expert in how to exercise safely at home. So it can be so powerful and so much more. If you were to see, this yogurt advert, I'm not sure we would say, oh, well, they must be the experts in yogurt because they're on the back of this magazine. What I would take more notice of is someone that was talking about Here we go. The Bosch Boys. They've positioned themselves as experts in vegan food. I think I'm right with this one. Because they're always talking about it. They write about it. They do their PR. They know what they're doing, and they become that expert, and they're constantly in the conversation. And if you see a roundup of vegan books, then you will know they will be in it. So again, position yourself as an expert. And I always say to clients, I actually say to students as well, what do you want to be known for? I don't want to be known for hips anymore. Thank you very much. I've done that. I want to be an expert in PR and in coaching for confidence. So have a think today after this call and just ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? If someone said in business, oh, Roxana, oh, we know her because she is an expert in assisting assistants, for example. Or we know Claire because she is an amazing yoga teacher and she works with pregnant women to make sure that they can practice yoga all the way through their pregnancy and then use it during birth. So just a couple of ideas, but that is really what it can do for you, to be visible in chaotic times. We're in chaotic times, you know. I don't need to tell you that. This year is something that we have never thought about, dreamt about, envisaged, wished. But the more visible you are when the times are chaotic, the more people will know about you, and they will come to you still when we go back to some kind of normality. So it's really important being part of that conversation, even when it's chaotic out there. All of those things. You want to grow your business even though it's chaotic. You want to drive your sales. You want to be part of the conversation and kind of show up. Quite often I talk about showing up and shining, because that's the thing. You're showing up, you're still helping your customers, you're still providing a really amazing service. And PR can help you to be visible, which is really important. Okay, so I don't want to give, I'm just checking what the time is. Oh, that's okay. So I don't want to overload you today because there is a lot packed into this presentation. But when you're looking at doing your PR, or maybe you're working in-house for someone, or maybe you work for an agency, really at the heart of your PR is your story. So it's looking at, you know, we look at brands. Apple, they have great PR. They have a huge machine. It works very slickly. Sometimes they crop up with problems, but they do have a great PR machine. Their story is that it was born from one man. There's lots of chapters to that story, and they have great products. So they put their story together. Coca-Cola started out and sold, I don't know, 67 bottles in the first year. That's part of their story. So it's looking at, you know, journalists, podcasters, influencers, they love the story, be that a really topical story at the moment. So for example, I'm working on a project this morning about eating well for your immune system, but there's also a backstory behind that organisation as well. So there's lots of elements, and it's saying, what parts of your business, what is it you're promoting? Thinking about, are you trying to sell books? Are you an author? You've got books to sell? Are you a VA? And your story is the fact that you used to be a teacher and you found that you couldn't have a great work-life balance because you had too much working, so you decided to become a VA for teachers. That's part of your story. That's part of what's going on, and you now offer that. And then behind that, you've obviously got the services, but it is important to kind of look at what's that story. Journalists love stories, people have stories, and just spending some time unpacking that. I have lots of clients. I had a client who was a rower, and then she then became a nutritionist, and then she went to write books about healthy recipes for lunchboxes. She's the lunchbox author. So that's her story. Her backstory is who she is, how she got to this point, and then what she does now is she helps families to eat better. So there's lots that you can unpack with a story. You can ask me questions afterwards if that will be helping, but that's kind of your starting point. People want to know about you. What's your story? What's behind you? What makes you different? What makes you unique? Maybe you make, is it bedspreads? I don't know if you call those. Maybe you make amazing covers for beds out of children's clothes as part of your story. So really digging deep and looking at, what have you got to tell people? What are they talking about you? What are they saying about you? Which sometimes I say what people say about us isn't important, but in this case, it is important because they're telling people about your story. So really thinking about that, getting that clear in your mind. You then need to think about who you're talking to. And we can, sorry, I'm just going to, you've got your story, and again, it's a bit like a puzzle. So you've got your story, and then you've got to kind of think about, well, who are you talking to? So if you, say you have a subscription box for cats. So I had a client and she had a subscription box for cats and cat lovers. Now, you could write a press release, and the fact that she came about it because her story was she loved her cat so much, but she couldn't get great products for her. So she set up something that she would want. And then there were lots of other cat ladies out there, and cat men. I think it was maybe a cat lady thing, but not to discriminate. But we weren't going to send her press release to Dog World, because dog owners weren't going to buy a subscription box for cats. It sounds really, really simple, but journalists get hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of emails each day and each week. So being clear at the beginning about who you're talking to is very, very important. You'll have this in your business plan anyway, or in your organisational structure, and you'll know who your target audience are. Are they mums? Are they graphic designers? Are they dads? Are they sports people? Do they play golf? What age are they? Are they retired? Is it kids? You know, we think we have this avatar. I don't really use that term, but we have this ideal client, and we really want to get clear on who we are talking to. Because once you're clear on who you're talking to, then there gets the fun bit. So you then look at, where are your target audience hanging out? And I don't mean Costa or Starbucks. I mean the media that they consume. So this can be, so I'm a complete media junkie. I have an office full of magazines, and I have, you know, I love magazines. I love podcasts. I love soaking up all the information. So I really can find where my ideal client is as a business, but also my clients, to work out for them what they're looking for. So I would say take some time. Once you've worked out who your target audience are, you then need to really get underneath the skin of the media they consume. Now, it could be that you say, well, they don't read magazines because they don't have time. So what you can do is you can ask them. Maybe you've got a newsletter, maybe you've got a Facebook page, Facebook group, you use Instagram. You could talk to them directly and just find out, what do you read? You know, if you're trying to target women over 40 because you sell lipstick, I'm looking at a magazine here, then you're going to think of things like Female and You, Stella, Health and Wellbeing, Chat, Vogue, Cosmo, all of those kind of publications. If you make pureed food for babies, you're going to think more along the lines of Mother and Baby, some of the mummy bloggers, because that's where your target audience hang out. So if you want to be, we're kind of going back in steps, but if you want to be part of the conversation in the right places, you need to know where your target audience hang out. So quite often I work, especially with startups, smaller businesses, on vision boards. And I do have one over there, which is more like a full cupboard of just ideas. And you can use that for generating ideas of where you want to be seen, but also just kind of putting it down on a piece of paper, thinking you can have a list of newspapers. Maybe you really want to be seen in the Times magazine on a Saturday and in the Guardian. Or maybe you have a charity, and so the places where you really want to be seen are All Together Now and Charity Times. It's going to be so different for every person that's sitting on this call today. But I would say to think about going back, looking at your story, you know, what's special about you, because there's something special about everyone, what's unique, what makes up your story, what makes up your background, looking at who you need that story to, who do you need to hear that story. And then when you've worked that out, where do those people hang out in the media? What do they like? What do they like reading? Is it Pick Me Up and Chat? Is it Bella? Are they more Vogue and Elle? Maybe you're a milliner, so you design hats, and it could be that it's you know, it is Vogue and Elle, and it could be Drapers or Harper's, that kind of thing. Maybe you're a coach and you want to be seen in We Are the City talking about work-life balance. There's all these things, because at the heart of everything that you do is you need the right people to see you, because then you're part of the conversation. we can talk about that. I'm going to go back one step because I'm just, yeah. So you've got that idea, and then I would just say, once you've worked out what they're reading, I'm going to come on to that, Melanie, now. I'm going to come on to that for you. So the first thing to do is to get those magazines. Find your magazines, go to Waitrose or Tesco, wherever you go, look at the websites and just get really familiar with those publications, because you might think, I want to be in Psychologist magazine. But if you are a circus juggler, how are you going to get yourself in Psychologist magazine? Is it that, you know, you've got to think, okay, are your target audience reading that magazine? If they are, and you think you can do, then just devour those publications, go through them, get some post-its, look at comment pages, look at any case studies. Do they have competitions? Could you offer prizes for competitions? Just work out, okay, this is what they read. Where do I fit on the page? So again, we've got health and wellbeing here. They have a piece where they do new food items. So maybe you've got a new food brand. They've got a piece about Ask the Expert, so how you can eat well when you exercise. So go to the magazines, go to the websites and just think, okay, this is realistic. This is where I want to be seen. This is also where my target audience hang out. It's the media they consume. Now, where do I fit on the page? You got all those elements. Then as Melanie says, where do you find the contacts? Okay, so you can, you know, PR businesses, some in-house teams, they buy database subscriptions and you can go in and find people, but you can just as well find them yourself. It's not difficult, and in the digital age, easier than ever. So if you've got your magazine to start with, if you go to the front page, it's called the masthead, and it's usually near the editor's letter. They will actually have, I mean, this one is very good. So this is health and wellbeing, and they've actually got all of the contacts and their email addresses. So that's kind of gold. So that's the first place, Melanie. You can find them in the magazines. You can also go through and just work out, well, I keep on seeing Melissa Smith writes here and she writes there, so maybe she's freelance. So I would say if you can't find them in the magazine or on the website, it's not a clear way. Bloggers, usually it's quite easy because blogs can be so powerful. And if you are, say you're making masks, really funky masks with superheroes on them for kids, you're going to want mums to see those and buy them. Lots of mums love blogs, mummy blogs, because they're kind of port of call for interesting things, helpful things. And so those bloggers could be really, really powerful for you. There's loads, there's absolutely loads. They're amazing, they're really helpful. The one thing I would say about working with bloggers, it's kind of like, be as respectful for them as you would the editor of the Times. So the thing is, actually, they're helping us as business owners. They're helping us to build our brand, to drive our sales, to reach a bigger audience, to talk to our people. And therefore, it doesn't matter who it is. And it's like any other element of life, be kind and be polite. We can't assume they're ever going to cover us, and that is the thing to do with PR, is that we might think our product is perfect, we've got the best quotes, we've got the most qualifications, but a journalist doesn't have to take it, and that's always one thing just to work out. There's never a guarantee with PR. So yes, so that was just a side note. And then coming back to how to find them, if you can't find them in the magazines, Twitter is your friend. I think that some people can be a bit nervous with Twitter, and I know that there's lots of platforms because we have Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, TikTok. I'm not really sure about TikTok. I don't know how I would use that, but that's fine. But Twitter is a really useful platform for finding contacts. You don't have to actually converse with anyone if you don't want to. It's also, I like it because it's quite anonymous. It's not like LinkedIn and someone can see you've looked at their profile and you've been snooping and being nosy, which I am. Twitter, you can almost use it as a standalone to create your own address book. So I would say if you have an account, if you don't have an account, please create one. And even if you use it for finding media contacts, go onto Twitter and then say, right, I really want to be in Red Magazine, really want to be in Psychologist, Cosmo Online, Forbes, and Chat. First thing that you do is go to Twitter Well, first we'll go to Red, see what you can find, have a look on their website, see if there's any contacts that you can find. If you can't, then put Red into Twitter. And when you press Red to follow, Twitter will really helpfully throw up, or give you, not throw up, give you 3 other people based on Red. It could be the editor, it could be the editorial assistant, it might be the photo desk. So you can follow those. And then when you've kind of exhausted Red, you can then put in Elle magazine or Psychologies. And a lot of those journalists will in their bio have their email address. So really, Melanie, it's a case of, sorry, Christine, I'm just looking at your questions. I finally got the Q&As, that's good. Okay, I'll come on to that. So really it is, it's searching, it's kind of playing a bit of an investigative role here, but you can find them. Otherwise, if you want to, you can just phone the publication and ask to be put through. Lots of journalists say they don't like to be phoned, but it is another option. It is there, so you can find them. And I would say one of the top things I would say to you is don't go away today and think, right, I've got to find a contact at every magazine out there. Try and keep that kind of target audience in mind, and then have maybe a list of 5 or 10 places where they hang out and you would like to be seen. So Christine, obligations. No, so when you subscribe to Twitter, you don't have to pay anything. It's a pre-platform. It's not you're not a member. It's just a social media user. So you set up your account. It is a good place. You can find opportunities using the Journal Request hashtag. You don't have any obligations at all, but you can talk about yourself. You know, the whole thing, you're welcome, Melanie, I hope it is, and any other questions, just let me know. The whole thing with social media is that we're not skulking in the background, you know, stalking journalists by any means. It's there for conversation. I know some people can get intimidated by it, especially at the beginning, but it's quite an easy way to just kind of see, okay, where are the publications I want to be seen? Who writes for those? How easy is it for me to get in touch with them? You know, I know that there's some journalists, but there's a couple at Metro, for example, and they're always looking for helpful comment on work life, dating, you know, how to ask for a raise in your boss. I think I did a piece with them about that with my coaching hat on. And sorry, so you don't have to disclose yourself, but if you feel brave and you want to start conversing with people, then you absolutely can. I do have a slide after this one that starts to give you some help with that. But it is a really useful tool. Twitter is a really, really useful tool just to get a feeling for what publications are looking for, what journalists are looking for, what they're talking about. And again, you can be part of the conversation. And if you're helpful, that can be a massive thing. Journalists love helpful people, be that official PR people or businesses doing it for themselves. Be helpful, make yourself indispensable. Be there with comments, be there with images, have stuff to go really quickly. That is really, really a good thing to be doing with your own PR. And then what I would also say, and it does come down to social media, is be your own media maker. So I know that when I started out in PR 23 years ago, we didn't have email. We didn't have email. We didn't have iPhones. We had fax machines and telephones. And I think I worked for a big supermarket called QuickSave, and every Tuesday morning I would have to send out a fax to a lot of magazines about our basket of the week. So it would be a list of products, how much they cost, and I would stand at the fax machine faxing. We would have bikes and they would send out oh, you're right, Christine, you're welcome. I think, yeah, absolutely encouragement. And I think I'm happy to talk about this afterwards, but it's just thinking you can do this. It's so achievable for everybody. I really do think it is. And sometimes it's just about being a bit brave. Some people will find it very, very easy to go out of their comfort zone, to approach journalists, to be on Twitter. And for other people, it can make you feel really anxious. So you kind of have to take it at your level. But you might find that being your own media maker helps ease you in. So when I'm talking about being a media maker, you're not waiting for the editor of Vogue or the features editor at Grazia to say, yes, we'll take your story. And you know, you don't have to have permission to be seen anymore. Sometimes you have to give yourself permission to be seen, because if you're feeling nervous about putting yourself out there, that can be hard. But actually, having a website, having a blog, having a social media presence means that you can talk about yourself to start with. And I actually think that this is a really good idea. So let's imagine that you are a nutritionist. And you talk about, so my friend Jenny T, she is an amazing nutritionist. She's called the Lunchbox Doctor, and she helps parents, or she helps people, not parents, she helps people eat better, create healthy lunches and healthy meals. Now, she went to a journalist and said, oh yeah, I can help you put together a bento box. And the journalist went to her website and she only talked about how to change a tyre. The journalist would think, well, this is a bit odd. So actually, by being your own media maker to start with, you're practicing what you preach. So on Jenny's blog, she has tips about how to shop healthily, how to eat well for menopause, how to eat well during pregnancy, what to feed your children, what to feed older people, how to make stew. You know, that what she's saying in her own media creation or her own content creation is what she's then replicating to the outside world. So as you can see, it is like a puzzle that comes all about it. So if you want somebody to know that you are a reflexologist, and actually these are the things that you can do at home to help ease tension, I'm making this up, but ease tension by doing simple reflexology things, moves, practices, write a blog post about it. Put it out on Twitter. Just start to get that feeling and looking at, okay, this is what I do, and now I'm qualifying what I do by writing about it myself. You might want to do a Facebook Live. You might want to do a reel on Instagram. You could put some tips on Instagram. So you're basically, before anyone's giving you permission, or before anyone's saying, oh, I really think what you're doing is great, I'm going to recommend you to my audience, use your own audience. So be your own media maker, because actually that can be so powerful. And when a journalist then looks on your blog or your social media, they'll go, oh God, yes, she does talk about what to put in your kid's lunchbox if they're a fussy eater. And it kind of validates it. So it's almost saying you don't need permission. You don't need to wait for someone else to make you part of the conversation. Now, more than ever, you can do it for yourself, but also that can be edgy, because sometimes we're like, oh, are we ready? Do we want other people looking? Yes, we do. So the time is now. So get your PR party started. Twitter. I'd love to know who's on Twitter. I'd love to see people on Twitter, and just step it, just dipping your toe in to go, it's a bit cold, I'm going to try. I'm just going to follow some people. I just follow Natalie. I'll just follow We're the City. Just see what's going on. That is the one thing you can do today, is go to Twitter, have a think about your story, really, really try and nail your target audience, because that is not going to only help your business, but it's also going to help your visibility, and it's also going to help your PR. And then go to Smith's, go to Waitrose, go to Tesco, get some nice shiny magazines. I mean, you might make wellies, and so you go and buy Fisherman Today and Farmers Weekly. It is so varied, but that also means that there's all these opportunities out there. And the reality is, Holly at Health and Wellbeing, she's the editor. She needs content that her readers want to read, and it might just be that you have what she needs. So that is and I would just say, please be brave, go and do it, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. And I firmly believe that we can all show up and shine. Questions? I've spoken a lot. I really have. 45 minutes. So if anyone does have any questions, then feel free to ask me. Thank you so much. Thank you. I will find you, and I'm really glad it's helpful. I think PR is one of these things that can be quite intimidating for people, but I think if we think, okay, you don't have to be the Kardashians, you don't have to be the Beckhams. Everyone has a place when it comes to PR. So please do it. And ask me any other questions. Yes, Melanie, absolutely. Guest blogging is great. Bloggers, they also hang out on, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. One thing that is great, I don't know what Oh, thank you, Roxana. That's lovely. I'm glad it's been helpful, and I really look forward to seeing what you're going to do with the PR for your organisation. I mean, I'm sure that at the moment assistants are key in organisations and keeping everyone together. So I'm pretty sure there's some interesting PR work that you could be doing. Melanie, guest blogging, yes. I'm not sure what you do, Melanie. Maybe if you pop in the box what you do, I could have a quick think while we're talking. Blogs are great because the really powerful thing about, okay, personal brand coach, yeah, great for bloggers. Okay, that's a really great topic for bloggers because quite often they don't know how to brand themselves. So you could do some work around that. You could do some, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for women, yeah. I would definitely look at some bloggers, look at who, again, go back to the beginning and think, okay, who are these women that would be my potential customers or clients? Which blogs do they use? And then just check out. I think there's nothing worse. If I do writing work and I might have some information. Christine, I'll come to that one in a second. Yeah. And then you could go to them and say, I really love your blog. I've noticed that you do this regular interview. Would you be interested in interviewing me? Or I noticed you take blogging content, but make sure that you've kind of looked at their site. You know, sometimes I'll have things about, someone will approach me about nappies. Well, my kids are teenagers. So it's not, and I'm like, you clearly have not looked at what I talk about. I talk about confidence and empowerment and PR and visibility. I'm not, so just have a little bit of a look before you do that, and that will really help you. And bloggers, they share their content, they want you to share their content, so they're really good because they have an engaged audience. So it can be a really powerful way. I'd also say, Melanie, something around what was I thinking? Podcasts. Podcasts could be a really good one for you. They can be a bit harder to find. I just put my last slide, but they can be a bit harder to find. But again, they're really brilliant and they're a great way to reach your audience. So don't overwhelm yourself. Or you may have done PR before, so I don't want to teach you to suck eggs on. Yeah, podcast, perfect for you, Melanie. I think that would be great. Christine talked about negatives. Okay. If we're going to be adults, there's always going to be someone out there that can be a pain. There's always going to be someone that doesn't want to do our stuff. And there's potentially going to be people that don't like us. What I think is really important that we remember is this is business. So we're not going to take it personally. Everyone has their own opinion. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine. They get nasty. I know when I went on TV last week, this weird man started sending really awful messages, and I reported him to Facebook and they've dealt with it. So I would say that's an extreme example. Some people might be a bit narky, but remember COVID, they might just be having a bad day. So I think it's almost like, okay, quite often I say, especially to my PR students, oh, sorry, I hit my keyboard, you know, put on those PR shoes or put on that cloak and just go, right, today I'm going to do 2 hours of PR. Some people are going to like it, some people are not. That's fine, because actually I don't like everyone and I don't want to cover everyone's stuff. So you've kind of got to grow a little bit of thick skin. There will be people that don't want to, there might be mean people, doesn't matter. Because if you can step out and embrace the people that do want to hear, that's what you're doing. So I think it's just being, okay, there's always going to be someone negative. We can't control them, but what we can do is not let them stop us from shining. That would be my my advice to that one. Juggling a job, additional activity. How do you carve out time to get the job done? Okay. Well, I don't always practice what I preach, but I think that if you can, you're very welcome, Christine. Very welcome. Just be brave is what I'd say. I would say just think about how much time you want to invest in this. So you don't have to do PR. You know, not everyone wants to do it. My husband is a surveyor. He doesn't do PR. He does advertising. He doesn't like to be seen. Total opposite from me. He doesn't need it. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to have his photo taken. That's fine for him. You might want to do a little bit. So you might say, okay, well, on a Monday, So for example, one of my clients, I worked with her on a Monday morning, she writes her content, and then every day she puts something onto Instagram about her business. And then on a Friday, she does a bit more research into places she might want to be seen. So she's not doing loads every day. The one thing that I would say that you can do is you can go and join Twitter, and then there's a really helpful hashtag, journal request. So you go to journal request, you put latest, and you will have people that are looking for personal branding coaches to talk about personal branding. You will have people looking for stylists to talk about why Kate Middleton wears wedges. You will have someone looking for Christmas gift guides. You will have students look at, there's tons. Twitter really can be your friend when it comes to PR. So I would say to get yourself a bit of a schedule going, look at all your activities, all of those things, and say, okay, how much time do I want to put aside? Is it that I'm literally going to look at Twitter once a day at journal request, and I'm going to blog once a week on my site? Because that might be enough for you. Other people might have more time because they've been furloughed, or maybe they've got an intern, and they can go, well, you can follow everyone on Twitter and you can do this. It's personal preference. I would say don't put any more pressure on yourself than you've obviously already got, because we can always be doing more stuff, and it's better to do something consistently, to do a bit each day. Look on Twitter each day. Maybe think about people you know. Do you know, have you got a friend who has a blog? Do you know someone that has a podcast? Does your neighbour work at the local paper? Go for those easier things to start with and then build it up. Yeah, you want to be in red. We all want to be in red. But what can we do at the beginning to build those steps and those foundations and build our confidence and put ourselves out there is the one thing that I would say. I obviously don't mind doing that, but I know that I have clients who find it a lot more difficult. So it's finding their comfort zone. And then you'll find you've seen yourself, Melanie, you've seen yourself on someone's blog, you've done a guest post, you really love it, you get a few inquiries, you get 2 new clients, you're like, oh, I really like that. I like it. It works. It does work. It does work. So that's what I would say, is to just kind of dedicate a bit of time, get yourself into a bit of routine, check Twitter while you're making a cup of tea in the morning. Don't check Twitter late at night when people are starting to have spats and stuff like that, but just keep it simple and just have that idea of these are the places I want to be because my target audience hang out there, and just have that goal, have that vision, and keep visible is my main takeaway from today. You're very welcome.